All right, guys, welcome back. So there's a few things I wanted to talk about today that over the weekend have been getting me. Um, First of all, the Russia situation is in far worse situation than we actually know. We shouldn't be playing with Putin like the way we are, or talking to him the way we are. Um, he's a nuclear power, and we're basically taunting him to launch a nuke, which you don't want to happen. Regardless of your stance on Ukraine and anything else, this has all been kind of put in place by America. Zelensky was a coup installed by the United States. If you don't know history very well, then go do some research on how Zelensky got in power and what Zelensky has done. He is definitely not a good human being. But not saying that Putin is a great human being. I'm not for Russia. I'm not for anything like that. I'm just saying that Putin is a very, very strong adversary, and we need to take him seriously. At this time, if we listen to current Biden things and current administration things, it's very scary. And the slip ups he makes on TV and on the public could be drastic. I mean, about the whole Taiwan situation and the White House having to walk it back, saying that their stance has not changed on Taiwan. It's crazy. Um, that he can make these statements on TV, on live air, and not understand what he's doing. It just takes one remark for this to get to Putin or for it to go somewhere else, and then the shit hits the fan. And another situation I want to talk about is how increasingly bad it's become to be someone who speaks out for family, someone who speaks out for common sense or freedom of speech. And I kind of wanted to play a little bit of Jordan Peterson. He's a controversial subject in person. I'm not too sure why, because he speaks a lot of common sense and dispels the whole idea of wokeism. And it's not liberalism, because liberalism is not what the wokeism is nowadays. Wokeism is wanting you, I mean, it should be its own new party. There should be a party of the woke, and then there should be a liberal party, which is probably honestly the best. I mean, if we were a liberal conservative party, there'd be unbeatable, because I think that's where I kind of stand. I'm a little bit more conservative, but I'm also very liberal. I'm more Republican, conservative slash liberal. I'm a real hybrid. I think most of people in the United States are now a hybrid of things and not just one or the other. And I lean more towards liberal for a few reasons. But we don't need to get into that now. But I just wanted to watch Jordan Peterson and then comment on it, and then maybe go through some Kim.com stuff if we have enough time. I think this is only 6 minutes, so let's listen to it, and I'll mute myself.
While there's a new movie out, which she says is based on you, this insane man, this pseudo-intellectual hero to the incel community. Incel being these weirdo loner men who are despicable in many ways. Is that you? Are you the intellectual hero to these people?
Sure, why not? People have been after me for a long time because I've been speaking to disaffected young men. What a terrible thing to do that is. I thought the marginalized were supposed to have a voice.
And with this, in my opinion, men, boys, or anything nowadays are being marginalized. Men, especially if you're white, you're not allowed to be proud to be, who you are. You have to think that you're bad. Men are now stripped down in the act of feminism at all times. We can't say things. We can't do anything. We're to bend our knees. We're to always to listen. It's getting very, very bad. And what's pushing this is a very secretly dark agenda that's been going over for a very long time. Let's let Jordan go, as he seems to be tearing up here.
It's making you emotional. Talk about that.
Well, God, it's very difficult to understand how demoralized people are. And certainly many young men are in that category. And you get these casual insults, these incels. What does it mean? It's like, well, these men, they don't know how to make themselves attractive to women who are very picky, and good for them. Women, be picky. That's your gift, man. demand high standards from your men. Fair enough. But all these men who are alienated, it's like they're lonesome and they don't know what to do, and everyone piles abuse on them.
When she said that, Olivia Wilde, it stung you, didn't it? I saw the
Oh,
reaction.
by that time, that as far as critiques go, that was kind of low level. I mean, once I got painted as Red Skull, magical super Nazi, that was kind of the end of the insults. There's no place past that. So when Olivia Wilde made those comments, the first thing I did was go look at the preview for her movie, which I quite liked. I thought I would go see that movie probably, and perhaps I will. It didn't really bother me. My family and I talked about it right away, and we were able to respond to it with some degree of humor, which then people completely misunderstood. I said I hope that, that if I had to be played by someone, I think Chris Wilde, he's a very good-looking man, and so that seems all right, And then I said something like, I hope he gets my fashion style choice right when he plays me. And it was a joke. All that was a joke.
I mean, you've been so controlled today, and yet in that brief moment, you got very emotional. Why?
It's really something to see constantly how many people are dying for lack of an encouraging word. And how easy it is to provide that if you're careful. Give credit where credit is due. And to say, you're a net force for good if you want to be.
And with that, the rest of the interview pretty much concludes. And what he's saying, it's very touching and very telling. He wants everybody to be heard, everybody to be taken care of, and also young men are told to not speak out about how they feel, so that to bottle it up, they commit suicide at higher rates than anyone. They go crazy higher than anybody else. Women talk. Women have the ability to go to people and talk, and it's okay. But if a guy has an issue and he needs to speak to somebody, it's frowned upon for some reason. And it's very true. Someone like Jordan Peterson who can come out there and help someone out and give them a voice or maybe some encouragement, tell someone, hey, you did a good job, you're good. That's something completely different, and a lot of people need that in this world. A lot of men need to toughen up. We need to realize this is not good. In my opinion as well, too, this is just a far-fetched opinion, so it seems, but the emboldening of women to go on OnlyFans and to not actually go for careers and to sell their bodies now completely goes against what we initially started with. So I would urge and caution women, especially if anybody watches this, to stop encouraging girls to just shake their ass, to get naked for money. Stop having this whole limelight of going on OnlyFans and making money off these pathetic weak men, and then stop also choosing men because they're rich or popular. That's kind of shitty. Men are equally as bad as women. Women are equally as bad as men. But this new generation of women are ruthless. They're rude. They're condescending. They think that just because they have a vagina that they rule the world. That's not how it works. We're here together. There's nothing that changes this. Nothing that's going to make it any better for anybody else if we keep doing this. But we need to do this together and work together. I'm gonna do one more thing. Talk a little bit more about Putin, even though we just talked about someone great like Jordan Peterson. Let's talk about Putin real quick. And some Kim.com stuff. 1 second, let me move my face. So if you go on Kim.com stuff, he lays it out pretty well. People call him a Russian sympathizer. He's not. He's definitely not a Russian sympathizer. He's just someone who can see the world as it is. And Russia is basically saying the West is rigged, and nothing that we do is to help anybody. It's just to empower ourselves, which is true. There's another YouTube video that I'll play as my final one, where it talks about how if you go against the United States, you just become gone, which is all well and good. Sorry, I'm not signed in. But if you go onto Kim's stuff and read some of his latest, then you'll understand what I'm talking about. But if you go against the West, you're pretty screwed. So I would not recommend doing that. And they all pretty much tell the same thing. If you do this, you're bad. If you do this, you're going to go. If you do this, it's bad for you. And just watch this question, how someone asks, what's the difference between America being in debt and why are we allowed to be in debt, but no one else is allowed to be in debt? This is carefully curated over the years and years and years, decades and decades of the United States becoming powerful. I'm not saying that the United States is bad. I'm saying that we need a really big change up. A really big change up in how we operate and how we do things. And I don't think left or right is going to get this correct. I think there's going to be a big change that needs to happen if we even can make it to the happenstance moment. But let's listen to this real quick and then we'll come back and end it real fast since we're getting long.
Thank you. I have a question. What's the difference between the U.S. debt and the debt that African nations own? Because the U.S. debt doesn't keep the U.S. from being one of the leading powers of the world, but then African nations can't make it because of that debt that is strangling them.
Should I talk? Okay. The first question is a very important question. What makes African and third world debt different from the American debt? Number one, America is never going to pay its debts. It doesn't have to. Its debts are in its own currency. We can simply print it. The African debt is not in its currency. The African debt is in U.S. dollars. Africa has to earn the U.S. dollars, and the only way it can earn the U.S. dollars is not to be assassinated for growing its own food and becoming independent and doing something that the United States does not like. The principle underlying the foundation of the World Bank, the International Bank for IBRD, research, the World Bank, is that no country should grow its own food. Africa and the third world should only grow export crops. To export, in order to have an oversupply of cocoa and other tropical raw materials, to keep down the price, they must buy their grain from the United States or Europe, so that if they do something that we don't like, we can do what America tried to do to China in the 60s. We can sanction them. We can say, we're going to starve you. We're going to not export any grain to you. So owing their foreign debt in dollars means that they have to somehow sell something that the United States wants, not what they want. I think the most evil organizations in the world today are the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. And my book, Super Imperialism, that I wrote in 1972, is all about that. The largest purchasers of the book were the Defense Department and the CIA. I was immediately, the organization I worked for was given a $75,000, $85,000 Defense Department contract for me to come to explain to them how American imperialism worked, and they used it as a how to do it book. They thought it was just spontaneous, and I had written the book thinking that socialists and third world countries would do something about it, and indeed it was translated into Spanish and other languages, but it was really the Defense Department that applied most of this, and I was amazed when I was invited to the White House to explain how imperialism worked. And my boss said, we've run rings around the British imperialists. This is how to do it. You make them owe the debts in your currency, not their own. You control their central bank and make them financially dependent on you, and then you've got a stranglehold for them. So certainly the third world countries should cancel the debts under the odious debt principle. I haven't been able to convince any of them to do it because they said if we do that, the CIA will kill us. So how do you break that cycle?
And that's pretty true. And that's what I want to say is that the United States right now is being a bully. We've been a bully for a very long time. We don't ever plan on changing, of course, because we are number one. Most people are scared of us. And that's not how it should be, in my opinion. I know that this is carefully curated by the top, and people, of course, don't ever want this to get out. And they want everyone to understand that the United States is the best of the best, always, which I agree. The United States is the best country to live in, but there are a lot of things we need to fix, a lot of corruption that we need to get rid of. The top down. First few things I think we should start with, is, and this is me being liberal in my sense, is legalizing drugs and put them in pharmacies so people know what they can and can't get, because it will do one of two things. It will get you to have safer drugs. You can know who's going to be a drug addict at that point. And it's okay because not everyone's going to want to be a drug addict. But you'll maybe tax money off that, everything else, if you just make it legal, and maybe make it expensive if you want. Maybe make it cheap. I don't know, because if you make it cheap, they're not going to have the cartels or anything like that. If you make it too expensive, they're going to go to the streets and get it from the cartel. So make it something that they can afford. Don't have to prescription rape everybody, or pharmacy or pharmaceutical rape everybody like they do currently. Price things reasonably and then give it to the people, which should be your first start. Second, also get rid of politicians being able to vote on bills that give them money. Make them so they can't do anything. And this is where I'm more conservative/liberal. Make it so they can't vote for things and then put stocks in it. Their families can't do that. Anyone who's associated with them shouldn't be able to own stocks, and they shouldn't be able to have a trust where those stocks are done or anything like that. I know Trump has a blind trust, and they're doing this one of the bills that they tried to put through recently was so they can see inside Trump's blind trust, which is stupid. But what they need to do is just get rid of insider trading. They need to get rid of, like, what Nancy Pelosi. She's a better trader on the stock market than anybody else. Which, if you can explain that to me, I would be thoroughly impressed on how she's so good at doing this, when banks and companies and people who spent their entire lives can't even trade as good as she does. So if you don't think she's insider trading, and there's Republicans that do it too. There's a lot of Republicans and Democrats that do this as well. But I think we need a big change in life if we're not going to wake up. We need men to grow stronger, which is why I showed Jordan Peterson. The United States this year fell short 25% of its recruits for the Army, which is very scary, very telling as well, too. If we go to war, we are going to have the weakest set of people we've ever had in there. We're going to have people who are just worried about their gender, worried about being called something else, putting a rainbow flag on there, putting a Ukraine flag on your American uniform. Like, toughen up, understand where you live, straighten up, or this is going to get bad before it's good anyway. So there's about to be a great reset. We're about to be through a lot of stuff. I know people say, oh, the Great Reset's a conspiracy. Well, there's a lot of conspiracies. 9/11 is a conspiracy. Everything that you can think about is a conspiracy. So you can call me a conspiracy theorist. Cool. I'm not going to be afraid of that. I'm not demonized by that. It's a silly thing to call someone, but we do need to be worried about this. And if you guys think Putin is someone who you can just laugh at, if he's touting he has nuclear and will use nuclear, then he will use nuclear. I wouldn't think Putin is afraid to do what he wants to do. The question is, if he does use low-grade nuclear, or if he uses, big-scale nuclear, like we did at Hiroshima or Nagasaki, then what do we do? What happens? The world ends. And let's just say, even if half the bombs hit the United States, then we are still screwed. All the bombs hit the United States. Let's say China goes through too. Let's say, all this stuff. We launch bombs. They launch bombs. It's just going to be mass casualties. What should happen is we should be pushing peace, treaty talks, and everything else. We shouldn't be pushing any of this other BS. No more saber rattling from the United States. No more saber rattling from Russia. Annex what's been annexed. Give Donbass back. And let's move on. That was the initial whole agreement too, by the way. It's if we just gave Donbass to Russia, which Donbass honestly wanted to go back to Russia. They voted overwhelmingly to go to Russia. So it's the fact that we stepped in. We emboldened Zelensky. We told him not to accept anything. We wanted this war. We wanted this whole entire thing just to mess and weaken Russia, but it's not weakening Russia. It's making their people stand more firm. And you could say that we're losing a war, but he just annexed 3 places, so good luck. He's not. He's not being rushed. But what we're doing is we're supplying weapons and everything to Ukraine. And if it gets any further, it's going to be very bad. So I made this video to kind of tell everybody, toughen up with this world. Don't be so, I don't know, silly about your emotions. Talk to people. Don't argue with people. If you disagree with them, talk to them, hear them out, let them hear your side. Be objective, be able to be heard, and listen to others. Like, it's not that hard. If we can do more of that, and we can discuss our situations and discuss problems, we'll be better off as a human race and people together. So, and also women and men, talk about your feelings, talk about your problems. Men especially, please talk to your friends, tell them how you feel. Maybe if you don't feel comfortable or you don't feel like you're going to be made fun of, talk to your mom, talk to your dad, talk to a counselor, anybody. If anyone actually watches this who gives a shit, you can message me and I'll respond. Just don't be silent. Don't let yourself get into this rut in this world where you think everything's bad, doom and gloom. We have a great place. You live in a great country. The world is good, but there are a lot of evil people right now in control, and we need to be careful. We need to be vigilant, and stronger than ever is what we need. If we keep becoming more weak like they want and keep pushing all this hate and division and vitriol, then we're gonna go the way that they want, and it's gonna be bad. So thanks for watching, guys, if you even did, and hopefully this helps some people out.